Without waiting for a response, Taeyang turned on his heel and walked out, letting the door slam shut behind him. Silence settled over the hallway. Jungkook let out a long, shaky breath, his knees buckling slightly under the weight of relief. He leaned heavily against the wall, placing a hand over his racing heart. Taeyang slowly walked closer, keeping a respectful distance so as not to startle him. "Are you okay?" Taeyang asked softly, his tone completely different from the sharp voice he had used with his father. It was filled with genuine concern and warmth. Jungkook looked up, meeting Taeyang's eyes for the first time. He wiped a stray tear from his eye quickly, feeling embarrassed, but the kindness in Taeyang's eyes stopped him from hiding completely. I am okay," Jungkook whispered, bowing his head slightly. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." "Don't call me sir," Taeyang said gently, offering a small, comforting smile. "I'm Taeyang." "I'm Jungkook," he replied softly. Taeyang noticed how pale Jungkook was, how exhausted he looked, and how his hands were still shaking. "He shouldn't treat you like that. No one has the right to make you feel helpless." Jungkook looked at Taehyung in surprise. He had expected the chairman's son to ignore the situation or defend his father. Instead, he saw pure empathy in Taehyung's eyes, a depth of understanding that felt strangely comforting. "Sometimes, we don't have a choice," Jungkook said quietly, looking down at his shoes. "When you have people you need to protect, you endure whatever you have to." Taeyang felt a deep pang in his heart. "Enduring alone only destroys you," he whispered, speaking as much to himself as to Jungkook. "You don't have to carry it all by yourself." For the first time in a very long time, Jungkook felt a tiny glimmer of hope in his chest. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Taeyang began visiting the office building more frequently under the excuse of managing personal affairs. In reality, he was keeping an eye on Jungkook, making sure his father didn't corner him again. What started as quiet protection slowly turned into shared quiet moments. They began meeting at a small, quiet coffee shop near the office during late evenings. Nobody had ever spoken to him like that, not with such fierce protectiveness. Most people in his life either demanded something from him or turned a blind eye to his struggles. One rainy evening, as droplets clicked against the window pane, they sat across from each other with hot mugs of tea. "Mr. Taehyung," Jungkook began softly, clutching his plastic bag a little tighter. "Why are you being so kind to me? You barely know me." Taehyung's expression growing distant and quiet. "Because I know what it feels like to be trapped," he said softly. "I know what it's like to feel like you have to endure pain just to survive, while the person hurting you acts like they own you. You look exhausted today." "Taehyung, see," Jungkook said softly, observing the faint dark circles under Taehyung's eyes. Taehyung gave a bitter, soft laugh, tracing the rim of his mug. "I had a bad night. The nightmares, they don't really stop." Jungkook listened attentively, his heart aching for the man sitting across from him. If you don't mind me asking, what haunts you?" Taehyung hesitated. He had never shared his trauma with anyone. His father called it weakness, Lisa called it dramatic. But looking into Jungkook's warm, non-judgmental eyes, Taehyung felt safe. "When I was small, after my mother passed, my father married Lisa," Taehyung began, his voice barely above a whisper. "She hated me. Whenever I made a mistake, or whenever my father was angry, she would lock me in a dark, tiny storage room under the stairs, hours, sometimes whole nights. Cold, pitch black, no sound except my own crying." Taehyung's hands began to tremble as the memory surfaced. Before he could spiral, he felt a soft, warm hand cover his own on the table. He looked up. Jungkook had reached across, holding his hand with gentle, steady warmth. "I'm so sorry, Taehyung," Jungkook said, his eyes shining with genuine tears. "You didn't deserve that. You were just a child." Taehyung looked at their joined hands, feeling the coldness in his chest slowly melt away. "My father knew," Taehyung added bitterly. He let it happen because he said it would make me strong. But it didn't make me strong, it just broke me. You aren't broken, Jungkook said firmly, his thumb gently stroking the back of Taehyung's hand. You are surviving, and you helped me when I felt completely hopeless. That makes you stronger than any of them. Taehyung felt his heart skip a beat. The deep, agonizing loneliness he had carried for years suddenly felt lighter. In return, Jungkook shared his own heart. He talked about his loving aunt who raised him, his fear of failing her, and the soul-crushing weight of working under Mr. Lee's inappropriate advances every single day. I feel so small in that office, Taehyung, Jungkook confessed, his eyes downcast. Like my dignity is something I have to trade away just to pay for medicine. You won't have to trade anything anymore, Taehyung said softly, his voice full of quiet resolve. I promise you, Jungkook, I won't let him hurt you again. I have my own independent venture, a private design and consultancy firm away from Lee Enterprises, Taehyung explained, his gaze steady and unwavering. I need someone trustworthy to manage my personal schedule and handle operations. The pay will be higher than what my father gives you, and your aunt's medical expenses will be fully covered under my private insurance plan. Jungkook stared at him in utter disbelief. Mr. Taehyung, I can't accept that. That's too much. I can't take your charity. It's not charity, Taehyung interrupted gently, a tiny, genuine smile tugging at the corner of his lips. It's an offer. You are good at your job, Jungkook. I've seen your work ethic. But more than that, I want to give you a workplace where you don't have to look over your shoulder every 10 minutes. Jungkook's eyes welled with tears. He bit his lower lip, trying to stop them from spilling over, but one escaped, tracing a warm path down his cheek. Jungkook let out a trembling breath, the heavy knot of fear in his chest finally unraveling. He gave a small, tearful nod. Okay, I accept. Thank you, Taehyung. Thank you so much. Hearing his name without the formal title brought a soft, genuine warmth to Taehyung's eyes. The rain continued to fall around them, but for the first time in years, neither of them felt entirely alone in the dark. The next morning, the air in the Lee Enterprises executive hallway was thick with tension. Jungkook walked toward Mr. Lee's private office, holding a single white envelope in his hand. His heart was hammering against his ribs, but this time, the feeling wasn't pure terror, it was the nervous adrenaline of taking back control. Behind him, standing near the elevator banks with his hands resting in his coat pockets, was Taehyung. Taehyung offered a small, reassuring nod across the hallway. That simple gesture gave Jungkook all the courage he needed. Jungkook knocked twice and stepped inside. Mr. Lee sat behind his desk, looking up with a cold, triumphant smirk. Jungkook, I see you've decided to be sensible and return to work. Take a seat. We need to discuss yesterday. I won't be staying, Mr. Lee. Jungkook interrupted, his voice steady and remarkably clear. He walked forward and set the white envelope on the glass surface. This is my formal resignation. Mr. Lee's smirk vanished, replaced by a flash of disbelief and anger. Resignation? Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? You need this salary. Your aunt? My aunt's medical care is taken care of, Jungkook said, looking straight into the eyes of the man who had terrified him for months. I am leaving to work for a company where my work is respected and my boundaries are honored. Before Mr. Lee could stand up or yell, the office door pushed open further. Taehyung stepped into the room, stopping right beside Jungkook. You can't threaten him anymore, father, Taehyung said, his voice quiet, sharp, and immovable. His transfer to my independent firm is already finalized. If you attempt to contact him, interfere with his aunt's hospital, or retaliate in any way, I will make sure every board member and major investor receives the recorded security footage from your private office. Mr. Lee's face went pale, his jaw tightening into a hard, furious line. He glared at Taehyung, then at Jungkook, realizing he had lost all leverage. You are making a massive mistake, both of you, he hissed. No, Taehyung replied calmly, taking a step back toward the door and placing a warm, protective hand on the small of Jungkook's back. For the first time in my life, I am doing something right. A few months passed, turning the crisp autumn breeze into the quiet freeze of early winter. Jungkook's apartment building had suffered a major pipe burst overnight, flooding his small living space and leaving him with nowhere to stay while emergency repairs were carried out. When Taehyung heard the news the next morning, he didn't hesitate for a second. Without accepting any of Jungkook's polite protests, he drove straight over, packed Jungkook's essentials into his trunk, and brought him home. Taehyung's private residence was a sprawling penthouse overlooking the river, filled with soft minimalist decor, warm ambient lighting, and art prints. Yet, despite its luxury, Taehyung had always lived in it like a stranger, leaving half the rooms empty and untouched. You can stay here as long as you need, Taehyung said, setting down Jungkook's suitcase in a spacious, light-filled guest room. It's warm, quiet, and completely yours. Jungkook looked around the comfortable room, stepping closer to the massive floor-to-ceiling window that offered a stunning view of the snow softly falling over the city. Taehyung, Jungkook turned around, his voice filled with deep gratitude. You've already done so much for me. I feel like I'm constantly taking from you. Taehyung walked over, stopping just a few steps away. You aren't taking anything, Jungkook. Having you here, it makes this place feel like an actual home for the first time. That night, a severe winter storm battered the windows with howling winds and heavy snow. In the middle of the night, a sudden power surge caused the penthouse to plunge into total pitch-black darkness. In his bedroom, Taehyung sat up instantly. His pulse spiked and his breathing turned shallow and ragged as the overwhelming sensation of being 7 years old again washed over him. The darkness felt thick, suffocating, and heavy, just like the locked closet Lisa used to throw him into. I'm trapped. I can't breathe. Cold sweat broke out across his skin. He tried to reach for his phone on the nightstand, but his hands trembled so violently that he knocked it onto the floor, where it rolled out of reach. He clutched his blanket, pulling his knees to his chest as panic seized his throat. Suddenly, a soft knock rattled his bedroom door. Taehyung? Jungkook's gentle, anxious voice cut through the dark. Are you alright? The power went out. Taehyung tried to speak, but only a tight, choked gasp came out. Hearing the distressed breath, Jungkook opened the door immediately, holding up the warm, steady glow of his phone's flashlight. As the light illuminated the dark room, Jungkook saw Taehyung curled up on the bed, trembling and battling a severe panic attack. Taehyung! Jungkook dropped to his knees beside the bed, placing his phone on the nightstand so the soft light bounced off the ceiling, casting a warm glow across the room. I can't, Taehyung choked out, his eyes wide with unfocused terror. The door, it's locked, it's dark. Hey, look at me, Jungkook said softly, taking both of Taehyung's ice-cold, trembling hands into his own warm ones. Look at me, Taehyung, you aren't in that room. You're safe. I'm right here with you. Jungkook gently moved closer, wrapping his arms securely around Taehyung's shoulders, bringing the older man against his chest. Taehyung collapsed into the embrace, burying his face into the warm crook of Jungkook's neck, clinging to him like a lifeline. Breathe with me. Jungkook whispered softly into Taehyung's hair, rocking them gently back and forth, in and out. I won't leave you. I'm never letting go. Slowly, as the minutes passed, the warmth of Jungkook's body and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat grounded Taehyung. The icy terror of the dark room began to recede, replaced by an overwhelming sense of warmth and complete safety. Taehyung lifted his head slightly, his tear-stained face inches from Jungkook's. The room was still dark, but in the dim glow of the phone light, looking into Jungkook's soft, caring eyes, Taehyung realized he wasn't afraid anymore. Thank you, Taehyung whispered softly, his voice raspy. Jungkook lifted a hand to gently cup Taehyung's cheek, wiping away a stray tear with his thumb. Their faces were so close they could feel each other's warm breath in the chilly air. You saved me from my dark place, Jungkook murmured, his heart racing with a feeling far deeper than simple gratitude. Let me stay and keep the dark away from yours. Taehyung leaned into Jungkook's touch, closing his eyes as a profound sense of peace washed over him. In that small, sunless room, surrounded by winter storms and old memories, two broken souls found their sanctuary in each other. The power returned in the early hours of the morning, flooding the penthouse with soft ambient warmth. Neither of them had moved. They had fallen asleep wrapped in each other's arms on the bed, held together by an unspoken promise that neither wanted to break. When Taehyung opened his eyes, the winter sun was just beginning to peer over the horizon, casting a soft golden light across the room. He looked down at Jungkook, who was resting peacefully against his chest, his soft breath steady and rhythmic. For the first time in his life, Taehyung woke up without the lingering weight of a nightmare. The darkness had lost its grip, replaced entirely by the presence of the person resting beside him. Jungkook stirred, his eyelashes fluttering open. As his eyes met Taehyung's, a shy, soft smile bloomed on his face. He didn't pull away. "Morning," Jungkook whispered softly, his voice warm with sleep. "Good morning," Taehyung replied, his thumb gently caressing Jungkook's shoulder. He looked at him with an intensity that made Jungkook's heart skip a beat. "I don't think I ever want you to move back to your apartment." Jungkook blinked, a flush of pink warming his cheeks. "Taehyung." "I'm serious, Jungkook," Taehyung said, sitting up slightly and holding Jungkook's hand firmly in his. "My whole life, this place and everywhere else I've lived was just an empty building. But last night with you, it felt like home. Stay with me, permanently." Jungkook looked down at their intertwined fingers, feeling a tear of pure happiness slip down his cheek. He looked up into Taehyung's eyes, seeing the quiet hope and fierce devotion shining in them. "I'll stay," Jungkook whispered softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Months turned into a year. Together, Taehyung and Jungkook transformed their lives. Under Taehyung's leadership and Jungkook's brilliant management, the design agency flourished into one of the most successful independent firms in the city, completely shedding any reliance on Lee Enterprises. With the strength of their bond, Taehyung took the final step in closing the door on his past. He severed all remaining financial ties with his father, ensuring Mr. Lee and Lisa could never step foot into his life again. Meanwhile, Jungkook's aunt made a remarkable recovery, moving into a peaceful suburban cottage where both Taehyung and Jungkook visited her every weekend. Their home became a place of laughter, warmth, and healing. Late nights were no longer filled with fears of the dark or heavy tears. Instead, they were filled with quiet conversations, shared meals, cooked dinners, and gentle embraces under soft blankets. On a quiet evening under a sky filled with stars, on the private terrace of their home, Taehyung got down on one knee. With a simple, elegant ring held in his hands, he asked Jungkook to share the rest of his life with him, not as business partners or former survivors of past pain, but as husbands. Through happy tears, Jungkook said yes.